Today is the 4th of August, so we continue with the Khandha Samyutta, the aggregates, 22.49. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Rajagaha in the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. Then Sona, the householder's son, approached the Blessed One. The Blessed One then said to Sona, the householder's son, Sona, when any ascetics and Brahmins, on the basis of form, which is impermanent, suffering and subject to change, regard themselves thus, I am superior, or I am equal, or I am inferior. What is that due to, apart from not seeing things as they really are? When any ascetics and Brahmins, on the basis of feeling, on the basis of perception, volition, consciousness, which are impermanent, suffering and subject to change, regard themselves thus, I am superior, I am equal, or I am inferior. What is that due to, apart from not seeing things as they really are? So now when any ascetics and Brahmins do not on the basis of form, feeling, perception and volition and consciousness, which are impermanent, suffering and subject to change, regard themselves thus, I am superior, I am equal, or I am inferior. What is that due to, apart from seeing things as they really are? So here the Buddha is saying, if a person does not see things as they really are, that means he still has the self. So because he has the self, and so he considers that there are others. So he has the views, I am superior, or I am equal, or I am inferior when compared to others. But if a person knows the Dhamma and his mind is very clear from obtaining samadhi, then he will see things clearly and he will have obtained the vision of the Dhamma, and then the Buddha says that he would not have views such as this, I am superior or equal or inferior. What do you think, Sona? Is form permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent, suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Similarly, is feeling, perception, volition and consciousness permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent, suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent, suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus, this is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Therefore, Sona, any kind of form whatsoever, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, all form or bodies should be seen as it really is with correct wisdom thus, this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. Similarly, any kind of feeling whatsoever, any kind of perception, volition, consciousness, whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, all such aggregates should be seen as it really is with correct wisdom. This is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. Seeing that, Sona, the instructed noble disciple, experiences revulsion towards body, revulsion towards feeling, perception, volition and consciousness. Experiencing revulsion, he becomes dispassionate. Through dispassion, his mind is liberated. When it is liberated, there comes the knowledge, it's liberated. He understands, destroyed his birth. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more for this state of being. These last few paragraphs that I've read is quite standard. The Buddha will say, here he's talking about the 5 aggregates. So he will ask whether the aggregates are permanent or impermanent. Then the disciple will say it's impermanent. And then he'll ask, what is impermanent? Does that give happiness or suffering? And then they say suffering. And then he'll say, what is impermanent, suffering and subject to change? Is it fit to regard it as this is mine, this I am, this is myself? And they say, no, Venerable Sir. And then the Buddha will say, therefore, any kind of aggregate whether past, future or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, etc. All these aggregates, these five aggregates should be seen with correct wisdom. Thus, this is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself. So normally when the Buddha gives such teachings, if the disciple's mind is very clear, then they will experience disenchantment with the aggregates and dispassion, and they let go the clinging in the mind, and they will become liberated. So this is this teaching actually is very helpful to a disciple to become enlightened, provided the disciple is ready for enlightenment. The next sutta is 22.53 at Savatthi. Monks, one who is engaged is unliberated. This word is engaged. Disengaged is upaya. And then the Pali dictionary is page 890. The Pali dictionary gives the upaya, the translation as attachment. So sounds better. Monks, one who has attachment is unliberated. One who has no attachment is liberated. Consciousness monks, while standing, might stand attached to form, based upon form, established upon form. With a sprinkling of delight, it might come to growth, increase and expansion. Or consciousness while standing might stand attached to feeling, attached to perception, attached to volition, and based upon volition, established upon volition. With a sprinkling of delight, consciousness might come to growth, increase and expansion. Monks, though someone might say, apart from body, apart from feeling, apart from perception, apart from volition, I will make known the coming and going of consciousness, its passing away and rebirth, its growth, increase and expansion. That is impossible. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha is saying that the consciousness is attached to the body, feeling, perception and volition. And then if there is delight in this or that, then consciousness will come to growth, increase and expansion. And then this last part is very important. The Buddha says, if someone says, apart from body, feeling, perception, volition, I will make known the coming and going of consciousness, its passing away and rebirth. That is impossible. In other words, you cannot separate consciousness from the other aggregates. These five aggregates must always come together. So if you don't understand this, you might think there is a being which is formless. It has no body. It's just pure consciousness. Like some people think, concept of Kuan Yin, Tzu Chai. Kuan Yin has no body, so Kuan Yin has no suffering. There's no such being. Because any being, if you have consciousness, the consciousness must rest in a body. Must rest in a body. You must have this body for consciousness to dwell in. So, because of this, so you see like this, the highest realm, the formless realm, the beings there, their bodies are so fine that they are not seen by other beings, so they are called formless. But some people think that they have no form. They only appear to have no form because all other beings cannot see them, even other devas cannot see them. But according to this sutta, you cannot have consciousness without the other aggregates. So even the formless realm, the beings there, they also have form. But their form is so fine that other beings cannot see them. Monks, if a monk has abandoned lust for the form or body element, with the abandoning of lust, the basis is cut off. There is no support for the establishing of consciousness. If he has abandoned lust for the feeling element, abandoned lust for the perception, abandoned lust for volition, for the consciousness element, with the abandoning of lust, the basis is cut off. There's no support for the establishing of consciousness. And that consciousness is unestablished, not coming to growth, non-generative. It is liberated. By being liberated, it is steady. By being steady, it is content. By being content, he is not agitated. Being unagitated, he personally attains Nibbana. He understands, destroy this birth, the holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more for the state of being. That's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha says, if a monk has abandoned lust for the 5 aggregates, then there is no support for the establishing of consciousness. And when the consciousness is unestablished, not established anywhere, not coming to growth, it is non-generative, it is liberated. Being liberated, it is steady, then it is content, and then it is not agitated. And this unagitated state is a cool state. Nibbana is a cool state. So when a being is unagitated, the mind is cool, then he attains Nibbana. So if a person's mind is agitated, he can never attain Nibbana, even if he wants to attain. For example, there are some ascetics, they strive so hard to attain Nibbana. The desire to become liberated is too strong, so the mind is agitated. That's why when we strive, the desire to become liberated must not be too strong. If you are looking forward to result, you are expecting results, then your mind is dwelling in the future. Your mind is not dwelling in the present. The Buddha says, you must leave behind the past and you must forget about expecting anything in the future. Then only your mind is cool. So a lot of people make the mistake because in the worldly life, we always want results, right? Success is shown by results. But in the spiritual life, it's the other way. In the spiritual life, we let go, keep letting go. Keep letting go until there's no more to let go. Even yourself also you let go. So if there's no self, what is there to gain? So you must always remember, don't be greedy for results. If you're practicing, you do your work. If you're not making progress, that means your time is not ready yet. Don't become agitated. I practice so hard, I'm not getting results. So, because your mind is agitated, if your mind is agitated, then of course you don't get result. So here you see, the interesting thing is, when there is no lust for the 5 aggregates and the basis of consciousness, no support for the establishment of consciousness. So it is, it does not grow. It is liberated. It is content, and it is unagitated. There are states of consciousness which are very high. Like in the suttas, they say about signless concentration. There's no sign. It's like no object. So and then there's a state called the cessation of perception and feeling, where the 6 consciousness stops. And although the 6 consciousness stops, when a monk dwells in that state, he's still alive. Although the breath has stopped, the consciousness has stopped, the heart has stopped. So if a person does not know, you go and examine him, you think he's dead. The only difference between him and a dead person is that a person who enters this nirodha state, cessation, the body is still warm, he still has body heat, meaning he still has life. So if he still has life, there's probably some other kind of consciousness in the body. So that's why here it says, even though that consciousness is unestablished, it is liberated, it is steady, it is content and all that. If there's no consciousness, how can the consciousness be steady and content and unagitated? The next sutta is 22.54, Savati, monks. There are these 5 kinds of seeds. What 5? Root seeds, stem seeds, joint seeds, cutting seeds, and germ seeds as the 5th. And if these 5 kinds of seeds are unbroken, unspoiled, undamaged by wind and sun, fertile, securely planted, but there is no earth or water, would these 5 kinds of seeds come to growth, increase and expansion? No, Venerable Sir. According to the commentaries, they have some interpretation about these 5 seeds, but it seems to be wrong. At the bottom of the sutta, the Buddha explains what these 5 seeds mean. If these 5 kinds of seeds are broken, spoiled, damaged by wind and sun, unfertile, not securely planted, but there is earth and water, would these 5 kinds of seeds come to growth, increase and expansion? No, Venerable Sir. If these 5 kinds of seeds are unbroken, unspoiled, undamaged by wind and sun, fertile, securely planted, and there is earth and water, would these 5 kinds of seeds come to growth, increase and expansion? Yes, Venerable Sir. Monks, the 4 stations of consciousness should be seen as like the earth element. Delight and lust should be seen as like the water element. Consciousness together with its nutriment should be seen as like the 5 kinds of seeds. Stop here for a moment. So here the 5 kinds of seeds represents consciousness together with its nutriment. These 4 stations of consciousness, sometimes the Pali word is vijnana titi. Sometimes it's called the abodes of consciousness. But in the Pali dictionary, they always talk about 7 abodes of consciousness. The first one, where beings are different in body, different in perception, like the human plane and devas, some devas, and some beings in the woeful planes. And the second one, different in body but equal in perception, meaning the Brahma realms. And then the third is the Abhasara Devas, those in the second jhana realm. The fourth is the Subhakinha Devas, I think they are in the third jhana realm. And then the fifth is the first Arupa Devas, and then the sixth is the second Arupa Jhana Devas, and the seventh is the third Arupa Jhana Devas. So the 4 stations of consciousness, or the 4 abodes of consciousness, should be seen like the earth element, just like the seed resting on the earth. So consciousness resides in these different beings. Delight and lust should be seen like the water element, because water, if you have water, that's the catalyst for consciousness to grow. So delight and lust is the catalyst. If we delight in this and that in the world, then consciousness continues to grow. Consciousness, together with its nutriment, should be seen like the 5 kinds of seeds. Consciousness, it has different types of nutriment. I think earlier we read. So all of these are considered as the 5 kinds of seeds that will sprout. Consciousness monks, while standing, might stand attached to form of body, based upon body, established upon body, with a sprinkling of delight. It might come to growth, increase and expansion. Our consciousness while standing might stand attached to feeling, perception, volition, volition. And based upon these other aggregates, with a sprinkling of delight, it might come to growth, increase and expansion. Monks, though someone might say, apart from body, apart from feeling, apart from perception, apart from volition, I will make known the coming and going of consciousness, its passing away and rebirth, its growth, increase and expansion. That is impossible. So here the Buddha stressed this point again, that the 5 aggregates, they come together. Monks, if a monk has abandoned lust for the body element, with the abandoning of lust, the basis is cut off. There is no support for the establishing of consciousness. If he has abandoned lust for the feeling, perception, volition, consciousness element, with the abandoning of lust, the basis is cut off. there is no support for the establishing of consciousness. And that consciousness is unestablished, not coming to growth, non-generative, it is liberated. By being liberated, it is steady. By being steady, it is content. By being content, he is not agitated. Being unagitated, he personally attains Nibbana. He understands, destroyed his birth, the holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more for this state of being. So here the point of this sutta is that if we let go the desire for the five aggregates, which is basically body and mind, then there's no support for consciousness, because consciousness resides in the body and in the mind. So when there's no lust for this body and mind, then consciousness will not continue to grow. The other point I want to see here, just now I said that the five aggregates come together. That is on condition that there is consciousness. Once you have consciousness, the other aggregates must be there. Body, feeling, perception and volition. But there is another state which is, there's a type of beings called the asanya satta. In the fourth jhana realm, there's a type of beings which have body but no consciousness. They have body but no consciousness. Without consciousness, so there's no feeling, there's no perception, there's no volition. It's just like a block of wood. They just exist for a long time in the fourth jhana realm. And the moment consciousness starts, they will die from there. This state, I've never seen any book talk about this state. But I like to make a guess about this state. Because in the Vinaya books, the Buddha described how he was practicing very hard to attain liberation, and how he tried all various ways to end suffering. In other words, end his existence. And one of the ways he tried was to use his mind to force the mind to stop. So because his mind was very strong, because he had attained even the arupa jhanas, so his concentration, his mind was extremely disciplined. So he used the strength of his mind to press down on his mind and make the mind stop working, because he thought the source of suffering is the mind. As long as the mind is running, as long as we are conscious, as long as we are aware, then we are aware that we are suffering. If there is no awareness, then there is no suffering. So he used his mind and exerted his mind to stop the mind from functioning. But although he tried quite hard, he did not succeed, luckily for us. So after that, he gave up that method. But since he had tried that method, I would assume that there are other ascetics who have also tried it. So if they had succeeded, the mind would have stopped working, become unconscious. Very unconscious for a certain while, for a certain period, and after that, consciousness will come back. So because they have trained their mind to do that now, when they die, I think they are born in that realm. But that shows, since that realm is in the fourth jhana plane, that shows you can only do that if your mind is at least you have attained the four jhanas. Because when you have attained the four jhanas, the mind is very, very strong. So that was just a passing remark. Our next sutta is 22.55 at Savatthi. There the Blessed One uttered this inspired utterance. Here it says, it might not be and it might not be for me, it will not be and it will not be for me. Resolving thus, a monk can cut off the lower fetters. When a monk cuts off the 5 lower fetters, he becomes an anagamin, a third fruition Arya, which is also translated as a non-returner, meaning he does not come back to the human rebirth anymore. But this translation doesn't seem to be very good. The previous one in the Pali Text Society, I think it sounds better. The previous translation was, were I not then, it would not now be mine. It shall not be, and mine it shall not be. So, try to explain this a bit from my understanding, my interpretation. Were I not then, probably means, were I not then, that means if in a previous life, I did not exist, that means I did not have the perception of I am, I exist. If myself was not there, it would not now be mine. This body and mind would not now be mine. This present body and mind would not now be mine. It shall not be. This it shall not be. This it is the I am, the ego, the self. Shall not be. That means it's determined to cut off the self. And mind it shall not be. When that happens, even if there is a body and mind, then it does not consider it to be mind anymore. It is just body and mind. So I think that is the explanation. When this was said, a certain monk said to the Blessed One, "But how, Venerable Sir, can a monk resolving thus, were I not then, it would not now be mine, it shall not be, and mine it shall not be." Resolving thus, how can he cut off the lower fetters? And then the Buddha said, "Here, monk, the unlearned ordinary person who does not see noble ones regards body as self, or body as belonging to self, or body as in the self, or self as in the body. Similarly, for the other aggregates, perception, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. He does not understand as it really is. Impermanent body as impermanent, impermanent feeling as impermanent, impermanent perception, impermanent volition, impermanent consciousness as impermanent. He does not understand as it really is. Painful body as painful, painful feeling as painful feeling, painful perception, painful volition, painful consciousness. He does not understand as it really is. Selfless body as selfless. Anatta, selfless. Selfless feeling as selfless. Selfless perception, selfless volition, selfless consciousness. I stop here for a moment. This selfless, what's the meaning of anatta? Anatta, sometimes they translate as no soul. That's not correct. Anatta means there is no core, something inside that is unchanging. If there's something inside us that does not change, then we can identify that to say that is me, because it doesn't change. But if everything in the world is changing, changing meaning arises and passes away, arises and passes away. Everything in this world has a birth, has a continuation and ceasing. So if you identify anything in the world as I or mine, in a short while, it will cease to exist. So where did that I go? Where did that mind go? Right? So that's the meaning of anatta. There is no thing that is permanent, that does not change. There's no such thing in the world. Everything in the world is arising and passing away according to conditions. So because everything is arising and passing away, there's nothing you can identify as yourself, because whatever you identify is going to cease to exist. So it's the same with the aggregates. All the 5 aggregates are selfless because they are impermanent and always changing and will cease. He does not understand as it really is conditioned body as condition, conditioned feeling as condition, conditioned perception, volition, consciousness. He does not understand as it really is. Body will be exterminated, will die, will pass away. Feeling will be exterminated. Perception, volition, consciousness will be exterminated. Stop here for a moment. This one, conditioned body, because in the world, everything is arising and passing away according to conditions. So everything in the world is conditioned by certain conditions. It comes into existence because of certain conditions. That's why it's called condition. And since everything arises and will pass away, so here it says the body and the other aggregates will be exterminated, will cease. The learned noble disciple monk who sees noble ones, etc., does not regard body as self, does not regard body, feeling, perception, consciousness as self or as belonging to the self, etc. He understands as it really is, impermanent body as impermanent feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as impermanent. He understands as it really is, painful body as painful feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as painful. He understands as it really is, selfless body as selfless feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as selfless. He understands as it really is, conditioned body as conditioned. He understands as it really is, conditioned feeling, perception, volition, consciousness as conditioned. He understands as it really is, body will be exterminated. Feeling, perception, volition, consciousness, all will be exterminated. With the extermination of body, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness, that monk, resolving thus, were I not then, it would not now be mine. It shall not be, and mine it shall not be. Resolving thus, Venerable Sir, a monk can cut off the 5 lower factors, but how should one know, how should one see for the immediate destruction of the asavas to occur? I'll stop here for a moment. So just now the Buddha was saying, for a monk to destroy the 5 lower factors and become an anagamin, he has to understand that the 5 aggregates are impermanent, that they are painful, that is a source of suffering, that there is no self in them, nothing permanent. He understands that they are all conditioned. He understands that they will all cease. And so, understanding that the 5 aggregates are impermanent and a source of suffering, then he resolves this saying, were I not then, it would not now be mine. It shall not be, and mine it shall not be. The last sentence, that this I shall not be, he will exterminate the I, the self, so that this body and mind will also not be anymore. So finally the monk asked him how to attain immediate destruction of the asavas, that means immediately to become liberated. The Buddha said, here monk, the unlearned ordinary person, ordinary worldling, becomes frightened over an unfrightening matter, for this is frightening to the unlearned worldling. Were I not then, it would not now be mine. It shall not be, and mine it shall not be. But the instructed noble disciple, or the learned noble disciple, does not become frightened over an unfrightening matter, for this is not frightening to the noble disciple. Were I not then, it would not now be mine. It shall not be, and mine it shall not be. Stop here for a moment. So here, the Buddha is saying, for the ordinary person, saying that the self will be no more is frightening to him. But for the learned noble disciple, it is not frightening to give up the self. Then the Buddha continued. Consciousness monks, while standing, might stand attached to form, attached to feeling, perception, volition and consciousness. Based upon these aggregates, consciousness may, with the sprinkling of delight, come to growth, increase and expansion. Monk, though someone might say, apart from body, apart from feeling, perception, volition, I will make known the coming and going of consciousness, its passing away and rebirth, its growth, increase and expansion. That is impossible. Monk, if a monk has abandoned lust for the body element, with the abandoning of lust the basis is cut off. There is no support for the establishing of consciousness. If he has abandoned lust for the feeling, perception, volition, consciousness element, with the abandoning of lust the basis is cut off. There is no support for the establishing of consciousness. When that consciousness is unestablished, not coming to growth, non-generative, it is liberated. By being liberated, it is steady. By being steady, it is content. By being content, he is not agitated. Being unagitated, he personally attains Nibbana. He understands, destroyed is birth, the holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more for the state of being. It is, monk, for one who knows thus, for one who sees thus, that the immediate destruction of the asavas occurs. So here the Buddha is saying that a monk abandons desire for the five aggregates, and then consciousness does not become established, and then finally he attains liberation.